Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another wonderful season of Growing Up with Godzilla, season 4 to be specific. And my name is Donny Winter, if you do not know me. And this is my show where I have conversations with Godzilla fans about how they've grown with the character and franchise over time. And for today's episode, I am super duper excited to have on a person of many talents, an individual who is an avid collector, an influencer on social media of sorts, and also a cosplayer too, like the trifecta of awesomeness. So without further ado, I would like to welcome on the ever so wonderful Mattzilla Collectibles. Hello.
How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Doing fantastic right now. Thank you.
Yay. In the back room I was literally complimenting you about like your impressive display behind you, and it's amazing. You have such a good selection of books and figures perfectly displayed for this. So
Thank you. I literally kind of fixed it up because there was a couple of books that were like off to the side. I'm like, let me just move these really quick. Let me do this real quick. So luckily I managed to makeshifted it to be presentable.
I know we were musing a little while ago. For some reason in my mind, I thought that we had met in person, but we have not met in person actually.
Yes.
Well, go ahead. You want to share like how we got connected?
Well, it was initially from the Godzilla 70th anniversary issue where you wrote in it, and I was reading that, I'm like, wow, that was really great between your poetry and Matt Frank's art, because it's just
Matt Stellar. I mean,
also another person I've never met, but yet I've become friends with on social media to the point that I've asked him for some for like prints and such, just because it's great art. But yeah, I saw your piece, and then again I liked it, and then I found you on Instagram, and then next thing I know, I'm like, oh shoot, you have a podcast about nothing but Godzilla. I'm like, that's great. So I'm glad.
and then
I'm glad
here
I
we
got.
are.
I'm honored to be on this. It's actually a lot. This is really exciting.
Well, I am honored to have you here too, and I am honored that you read our comic. Like, it really means a lot to me. And I think one thing I really appreciate about our fandom is I do feel like social media makes everyone accessible, right? It's nice and enriching because then we all become friends, and then we just continue building onto the community, right? Which is something I'm very passionate about the show because, again, it's a celebration of who we are, because without our histories being fans, how do we shape community?
Exactly.
Right. So, well, we're obviously here. I want to really delve into your history as a Godzilla fan. So how were you first introduced to Godzilla? Share your story from the beginning.
Sure. So I'm a kid of the 90s. I was born 1990, and growing up, most kids are gravitated towards dinosaurs, superheroes, a lot Saturday morning cartoons, just like a lot of that influenced me. Now, the thing about about at the time was I lived with my mom and my grandmother. My parents had me really unexpectedly, so like they had to like deal with their stuff before they could actually move in together. But I was just filled with not like always had a lot of movies like VHS tape. My parents would always have like a ton of movies, and anything from like Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, Cheers, like a random assortment of films, TV shows, and such. But they had a lot. They had a couple Godzilla movies, and it just like clicked. Like, wait, I like dinosaurs. Godzilla's a dinosaur, right? I think. And it was just kind of like, oh, this is like something I'm really into, and was interesting because like a lot of the kids growing up were like, what the heck is Godzilla? Because it's such a generational thing. Because
Right.
again, I grew up watching like the 60s and 70s movies, and and again, like I don't think we really had any access to any of the 90s Godzilla movies till like much later. But
Yeah.
that was the big one for me. Like, and again, I was also like into the superheroes. I like Batman. I like Spider-Man, because at the time they both had the cartoons going on, and I would pick up comics. And as I grew up, I've kind of teetered between like am I like just as my fan base, because it's, you kind of get like when you're fixated on something and you're like, ooh, I really like this, and sometimes it just kind of fades off a bit and then it comes back. So my comeback for Godzilla was, I think, grade school, where for one of my, I think it was like 5th grade English class, they asked us to write an essay. It could be whatever you want. So I wrote Godzilla cinematic history related and culture related to the movies. Oh, I got a 94 on that too. That was
good job.
But it was great because I got to express myself more, and little by little, it was hard. It was harder in high school because, like, I unfortunately was one of those kids. Was like, like, do I really like? I kind of want to be with the popular kids, but is it really necessary? Like, in the like, older me now is like, don't be dumb, just be you. Senior year, I actually retweaked that old essay I had and used it again, just talking about it. And my English teacher loved it. I was just like, okay, I'm good. I got the A. We're good.
And good for that teacher too, for like kind of allowing you to carve a space to write about something you were passionate about. Because I remember, like, I had some teachers who were really good about that, but then I had other teachers who were like, no, like, that's dumb, like, that's childish, what are you doing? Yeah. And I'm just like, why are we stifling kids? Like, if a kid likes a dinosaur, if a kid likes a character and it fits the assignment, let them write about it.
Exactly. But yeah, so now I'm trying to progress. Okay, we got through high school, college. I wasn't really as invested with Godzilla at the time because, like, I was just distracted by a bunch of other things, and also at that point I was in my comic book phase where my best friend from high school got me back into reading comics, and then I'm like, oh no, I need to get, it's like I need to make sure I'm up to date with it. And when you're away from college, you're limited to where, like, bookstores near you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes.
Plus you should probably be like focusing on schoolwork, but that I digress.
Who does that, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I think it was by 2012 was when I was surprised that IDW started up the like, they got the license to do Godzilla comics, and I'm like, oh no, this is a double whammy for me. So I collected that for a while, but I was also collecting like Batman and Justice League and a few other books. Like, I found that over time, even though I was jumping into all these different mediums, it all kind of rooted back to Godzilla, which I was like, cool. He's been with me throughout my life in one way, shape, or form, and it's just been a fun ride. After I finished up at college, I wound up working at a comic book store. Yeah.
Okay.
So I know, it was the fun job. And
it gave you that access to comics too.
It did. So it kind of helped me with that, because, like, it was also like, if I didn't work there, I would have never have, like, went to Comic-Con. Like, everything kind of, like, that was like my big thing. Like, since 2013, I've been to every New York Comic-Con.
Wow.
Yeah, like, which also helps me with, like, going into like cosplay. Like, I've done my big go-to for cosplay is actually Batman, but in the back of my head, I'm like, I would totally do something Godzilla related. The problem is making that is tricky and expensive.
and very expensive. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a suit. You could go as, like, maybe one of the characters from the Godzilla franchise, right?
That's true. I've dabbled on the idea of, like, I could probably make like a paper shade oxygen destroyer and just be Sarazawa, eye patch, trench coat, done.
Do it. That would be great. Well, I was looking through your cosplay page, and I found it very impressive. I was just like, this is some good stuff. And well, and over the years, it also seems like you really wanted to build a presence, especially on Instagram, with collecting. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So the idea actually came from my best friend John. He's been with me throughout, like, since 2008, like when we were in high school together, and he got me back into comics. But what he also did was collected figures, and he has this knack for figure photography.
Oh.
And he, like, I could literally give him like a 6-inch figure, and he'll make it look immaculate. Like, he's like, okay, gotta get the angles right. Like, so I was really impressed by that. So we initially had we tried to do an Instagram page of just our figures, but as it progressed, I'm like, he's doing more than I with that than I am. So I'm going to let him take care of that. Like, I'm going to let him have access to that. But it inspired me to make the collection page. I was like, you know what? I have all these figures, all these memorabilia, collectibles and stuff throughout. And I'm like, let me post about them. And
Mm-hmm.
I try to pick and choose, like, things that mean to me and also, like, relate to me. So, like, you'll notice there's a lot of it's comic related, because that's like the big focal point for me with my collection is, like, I have a Godzilla collection. I'm an avid comic enthusiast, so just when they come together, I'm like, this is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only that, it's figures, it's just meeting people in the community, because I have been fortunate to meet so many Godzilla related people in the community that I'm still shocked that, like, I've been able to have that experience. And again, part of it's from me experiencing cons. Like, 2014 was my first convention where I met someone related to the Godzilla franchise.
Mm-hmm.
It was Chiller. It was, like, right after Comic-Con, so I'm already, like, fatigued from, like, my first, like, from that. I'm like, oh man, now I'm going to this, like, this little con. It's a Chiller Theater.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that before.
So it, again, like, I've tried to go to mostly local ones, just because of, like, little community things where it's like, okay, I'll go there. But that particular one, it was a quadruple threat. So it was Nishikawa, the concept artist for the '90s Godzilla movies, like, and I believe he designed Kiryu as well.
I also think the Mothra trilogy too.
I believe so. Maybe
I'd have to look
did
that
a
up. I'm
lot.
really
Did a
sure.
lot. So he was there, but then Kitagawa, the suit actor from Godzilla 2000, Kenpachiro Satsuma, he was '90s Godzilla. He was there, and the big one, like, I met Haruo Nakajima. I was yeah,
Oh, what was it
sweetest
like meeting Haruo Nakajima?
sweetest guy. Like, like, his daughter translated a lot of it, and because he can really speak English, but, like, I was just, like, happy to be there. You could see the enthusiasm in his eyes. I'm just like, I'm sitting next to Godzilla. This is cool.
That is amazing. I am sad. It's sad to say I have not met. I never met Haruo Nakajima. Um, but, like, I'm like, whenever I hear people talk about him, like, they're always filled with wonder and like his enthusiasm and energy. And I'm glad that is one of his legacies, because he really was such a powerhouse, right?
Oh yeah, like, I was gonna say, it's you don't have Godzilla without him.
Absolutely. So, random side note question, going back to when you were a kid, what was your first Godzilla movie?
So, to memory, and it's actually one of my personal favorites, was Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla in 1974.
That was my first too.
So it just resonated with me, like, because it had a little bit of everything. One, Mechagodzilla is my favorite Godzilla villain. Like, it's just his overall design, the colors, the abilities, everything just stood out. Plus, I'm not gonna lie, the score by Masaru Sato, just, it slaps. It's just really
An
good.
underrated score.
Right. I'm just like, it was the first one. I'm like, okay, I get behind this. And it's funny too, because one of my first figures that I have to memory was actually this one, the Imperial Godzilla
Yes.
from, I think it's like from 1985, but got it at a Toys R Us. But I used to have two of them as a kid because I would have one fight the fake Godzilla from Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. I'm like, at that point, I just went crazy. Like, used the figures just to reenact certain certain scenes. It was just me being 5-year-old me just having a ball.
That is amazing. I used to have an Imperial Godzilla too. Except I think it was my grandpa on my mom's side bought it at a garage sale, and its like nose had been ripped off by like an animal.
Ooh.
So it was like this Imperial noseless Godzilla. It was, but you know what? I loved that thing. I got so much play out of it. Until I broke it. I was a very reckless child with my figures. So
I was too. Like, trust me, he has wear and tear on him. But now I'm just paranoid. I'm like, I can't afford to chip anything now. Like,
you must not blemish the figure.
Which is funny and ironic because my best friend, he does kit batching where he'll actually like Frankenstein figures together for like scenes and stuff. So he's just like, I'm just gonna take this apart. I'm like, oh, all you gotta do is rip this tail off. I'm like, don't do that.
No. Oh, that would make anybody's skin crawl, right? So, well, since we talked about films briefly, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you which films are your favorites now and why. Like, do you have like a top 3?
It's hard to choose, and I feel like I'm constantly changing. So,
which is okay.
Just to spread out, like to kind of spread out like the different genres of Godzilla. Like, you already have Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. That's like my comfort food movie. I really like Mothra vs. Godzilla 64.
A Mothra movie. Well, you just made my day. So
it's just so good. It's just so well executed. The story's basically about corporate greed and how it affects. And I'm like, that's real. That's like, it has a good message. One of the best Godzilla designs, in my opinion. I don't know. There's just something about like the facial structure of just like with the huge eyebrows that just like it makes him menacing, but also kind of like, I don't. It's just it's a very elaborate design.
You know, I'm really stuck on the corporate greed bit because I feel like in the grand scheme of things, we don't celebrate that film. It's other Showa films too. There were quite a few Showa films that really honed in on that theme of corporate greed that I think have withstood the test of time very well. I mean, we see to this day a lot of corporate greed manifesting itself.
Oh yeah.
And I think that Godzilla films can serve as like a very good like mirror to that, to be like, all right, if you're engaging in corporate greed, Godzilla's gonna smash your building.
Right, like
Mothra's gonna blow you away.
Exactly. You're trying to exploit an animal with the giant egg, and you're just like, you really just want Mothra to just come in and just wreck your day. Why would you do like it just shows how like blind you can be under those circumstances. And it's like I said, it's good because that movie elevates itself because of the fact it has a message. It has like those are a lot of the Godzilla movies that I point out are going to be like kind of focused on that in terms of like my favorites of like, it's like, okay, there's another meaning to it.
Absolutely.
It's funny because I just watched this one recently, Godzilla versus Biollante.
Another one of my favorites.
I like the whole idea of like messing with genetics and like how it can create like abominations and such like that. And also Biollante's design is just peak cinema. Like the fact that the amount of piano wires it has to take to get all those tendrils moving and stuff. I met the actress who played Miki Sagusa.
Megumi Odaka.
Yes, thank you. Her name escaped me from a bit. I was just like, it's Mickey. But yeah, I met her, I think it was 2018. I think at another convention in Jersey, because I'm from Jersey. I don't know if I mentioned that prior. She was just like, again, just really happy to be there. I got a print drawn by Nishikawa of her with Godzilla and Biollante on the side. It was really nice. Somewhere deep in my pile. That's the thing. I have all these prints and posters and stuff, and I just like don't have enough wall space for them.
Oh, I'm the same way. I also met Megumi Odaka. I think that's when she started resuming going to conventions.
Okay,
I think I met her at the 2018 G Fest.
nice.
And she was so grateful and so sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a moment for me because I've loved Miki Sagusa since I was a kid. And the truth is that character, I used to literally, like, she would be like my main character's best friend in all the fanfics that I would write. It was really cringy.
But that's the great part of it is like that she's one of the few characters that actually like continued throughout those 90 Godzilla movies. So like you grew up with her, like you saw her like go from being the teenager to go to work to like helping the military to going to G-Force and then so on. And it was just like it was good. You could actually like grow up with that character, which is really hard to find in like any of the Godzilla movies because like either the continuity is kind of ebbs and flows, or if for the Millennium series, it's like whatever we want to do.
It's like, let's reboot it every other film or every single film.
Yeah.
Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla Showa is your comfort film, but then Mothra vs. Godzilla vs. Biollante. What's your third favorite Godzilla film?
I was gonna say -1, but I think -1 is still too early in that like it's that hype phase for me. Personally, I'm a lot of people usually like gives me flack for this, but I actually really enjoy. It's a tie between 2014 and King of the Monsters 2019.
Ooh, good ones.
So for me, 2014 was like my reawakening to Godzilla because it was just like, wait, they're trying like the US is making another one. We're doing this. This is happening. And I was so I was so nervous because I'm like, I don't want it to be 98. And then when that first like trailer dropped with like I think it was a teaser for I think San Diego or New York. It escapes me, but it was that scene where that opening with J. Oppenheimer like speech going in the background. You see the building. I'm like, the
marketing for that film was top notch.
I know, and they were like they did it so well. Like they only gave you bits and pieces of Godzilla. Like you don't see him completely, and then you're like, wait, what's this thing flying in the air? Why is that exploding? Is that a hook hand? Like
well, earlier you mentioned that you were worried that people would give you flack for liking the MonsterVerse. Do people often give you flack for liking those films?
It's not that they. Well, let me rephrase it. It's not that they would give me flack, but I find so many people don't like the MonsterVerse, and I think to myself, like, as someone who's been a fan since the 90s, like the fact that by 2004 we after Final Wars, we didn't have any Godzilla content for 10 years. We had so like the fact that like they attempted this, and I think 2014 succeeded a lot with just reestablishing the character and basically influencing pretty much most of the Godzilla content after the fact. Like I don't like Toho saw that. 2014 did really well. We could do another one. Let's do Shin Godzilla.
Yeah. I do think that the Americanized Godzilla films have definitely been the catalyst to motivate Toho to be like, hey, there's still money in this in this character that we have. We need to invest in the character. Well, the reason I asked that question is because I once in a while will get flack from saying that King of the Monsters is my favorite MonsterVerse film. We all know why it's my favorite MonsterVerse film. And you know, I know that the MonsterVerse is not perfect.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think I've talked at length about this on the show. And I think it was an episode with Matt Frank where we were talking about how there were like a lot of like purist fans just being really upset over the MonsterVerse, not necessarily staying true to the original Godzilla story. And initially, I had felt that way too with those individuals, but then I realized America can't really tell the story from that perspective because we don't have that lived trauma
Right.
that the Japanese experienced in World War II. So would it be even appropriate? It would not be appropriate for the Monsterverse to, in my opinion, reflect that original
Right.
Godzilla story.
Not to mention that, like, fact that they were for King of the Monsters, because again, I'll let you know right off the bat, I watched that movie 7 times in theaters.
You beat me. I watched it only 4.
I was so invested, and well, the thing too was, I'm like, so I'll backtrack a little bit. When 2014 came out, I pretty much invited all my friends. Like we had because like at the time I was still working at the comic shop. I'm like, okay, we'll meet at the shop as soon as I'm done. We're gonna head to the theater and watch it, and it became a tradition. So when King of the Monsters came in, I was like, how many friend groups can I get to go watch this movie with me? So the first time I had like a few, I had my best friend John, I had a couple of my coworkers, I had a couple guys from the shop. And then the second half, I had my other group of friends, and then the third time, I'm like, I basically told my parents for my birthday, I want you guys to go see this movie with me, which was hilarious because my sister wasn't really aware of like all the different monsters, and my mom had to explain to her which ones were going on and she's like, how do you know all this? Because I had to buy all the toys from when he was a kid. So,
well,
and a couple times, exactly. And a couple of times I just went, I'm like, you know what? I've got nothing going on. I'm just going to go sit here and watch it because I felt that supportive and confident in that movie because again, all the reviewers gave King of the Monsters flack, but I also think it was the timing because you had like what was it? Was it
it was Avengers Endgame that came out.
Yeah, it's like there's so much that was already hyped up to the point where it's like, how do you compete with that without seeming like you're mimicking? Like I think it was just circumstances why it didn't do well, because I think if it were any point in that where there wasn't like 5 other blockbuster movies that time, I think it would have
been wildly successful. I mean, it probably would have reflected the similar success that Godzilla X Kong has recently received, right? So, okay, you've already mentioned that Mechagodzilla is your favorite Godzilla villain, right? So, are there any specific kaiju and human characters that you're drawn to? And if so, what draws you to them? So, what draws you to Mechagodzilla specifically?
So overall, he's very aesthetic with his design because he's so, like his first incarnation from the '74 film. He's made by these aliens. He's made out of like space titanium, and the fact that his entire body is a weapon, like the finger missiles, the laser beams from eyes, the missiles in his mouth, the missiles in his kneecaps, the missiles in his toes, and like the one scene that I like the most, which is probably like the worst for whoever was in the Godzilla suit at the time, is just that opening scene where they're just going ballistic and shooting everything at him, and I'm like, holy crap! Like it just showed that depth, that like immense power. Now in every incarnation, he's always had something that kind of gravitates. Like I think with Super Mechagodzilla, I think that he was more played off as like a human weapon, which I was like, it kind of took away from the character that I was used to as like the villain. I think he does better as a villain than he does like a weapon for like humanity.
Right, I agree.
So that being said, I like the fact that he would interchange with the Garuda and like have the 2 arm cannons and stuff. Like that was a cool idea. Q was interesting because from Godzilla Against Mechagodzilla, because like, oh, they used the bones of the old Godzilla. I'm like, okay, that's a cool sci-fi aspect of it, and it's just and again, that movie also had like an extra meaning to it of just like should we be tampering with
nature, right? No, that's my favorite incarnation of Mechagodzilla, which is it's probably why Tokyo SOS is like in my top 5 favorite films, especially. I mean, other than my queen being in it, but
Oh, of course.
also like just like the sophistication of the theme,
Yeah.
right? And we all another theme that we see in Godzilla films is like this use of weapons of mass destruction and kind of like how people are so laissez-faire about that. And I think that that film especially is like that foil like of like, hey, weapons of mass destruction can be very problematic and multi-layered and terrifying. Like, what are we doing? Okay, so you have Mechagodzilla. Are there any other favorite kaiju?
Going back, like the whole thing with Biolante. So a slight backtrack, but one of the items that I had collected when I was working at the comic shop was Magic the Gathering. I was an avid player during COVID because there was nothing else going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason it even popped up in my head is because when my customers messaged me, it's like, "Hey, did you see the new Magic set that's coming out?" I'm like, "No." Like, I don't care. I don't care about Magic. It's like, you should probably look at it. That was the set where they had the Godzilla art.
Oh, it was so good.
I know. I have the whole set in English and in Japanese because I'm crazy.
No, you're iconic.
Thanks. But because I bought so many cards, I'm like, oh, I should probably like build decks with it. I should probably like relearn to play the game. And then I got hooked, and then I made like 8 decks, and then yeah. But obviously my first deck was Godzilla. I tried to make it work. It works. I put way too much money into it, but it works. But my second deck was Biolante, because the theme of that was basically when she comes out, you basically resurrect a bunch of your creatures, which every time I think of it, I'm like, oh, it's just all the tendrils coming out of the freaking ground and like all crazy. Like that art, I don't know if you've seen the artwork for that.
Oh,
right?
I have. It's so great.
So I actually have an artist proof from the artist. I think he's from Istanbul, I think. But they'll occasionally sell commissions on their Instagram stuff, and he took it. He had the prototype card, and he drew a little sketch on it, and now it's in my collection.
That is amazing.
Yeah, but
I am like, that is wild to me.
But
I was gonna say, if you have it, I need to see it.
But yeah,
just
like
to nerd out with you.
But Biolante is one of those characters that like really resonated with me. Like, there are very few female kaiju. That's
yes,
right off the bat. Like, because for the longest time it was always Mothra.
Right.
And the fact that like her creation is such a tragic one. Okay, so that.
Oh my god.
So that's just the card, and he signed it. But on the back is the art.
Stellar.
Yeah,
I have
a bunch of them. I spent way too much on them, but it's one of those things. It's one of those things that's like, I have it, and only a handful of people do it, because again, they only print so many. They only print so many of them, like, to just kind of, and they usually just give it out to friends and family. But some of them will like, here's a sketch. Here you go.
Did you see that short film themed around Biolante that's been circulating YouTube? I'm trying to remember. It's brand new, created by like a filmmaker. I'm trying to remember what it was called. But like, this person made like this really cool like story about Biolante and turned it into like this short film, like this very grotesque horror short film.
Oh, damn.
And I feel horrible. I'm gonna have to like when I do the editing, I'll have to list the person's name. But like, it was amazing. And if you love Biolante, I think it's required viewing for anybody who loves Biolante.
Yeah.
1000%. How about human characters?
So one of the ones that I gravitate towards, one was Mickey, because as I explained before, like, you kind of see her grow up with it. But I actually kind of gravitated towards Ken Watanabe in in 2014 King of the Monsters, because he's the only, because in the film realizes the danger that's going on, and one, he's just so fascinated by Godzilla, because it's like he's been studying this thing all of his life. He's so passionate about it, and like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm passionate. I just feel that. The scene when he has to like use the bomb to wake up Godzilla in King of the Monsters, and I'm just like, between his performance and Bear McCreary's like music, because I don't know if you know this, but the music to Goodbye Old Friend is like in a dead Scandinavian language, and just talks, and it's just talking about like it's all about sacrifice, and just like how
I did not know that.
It goes really deep. I'm like, holy crap, you didn't need to go that hard on.
See, even I learn new things here on this show. I did not know that. That is so cool.
Yeah, like I said, I really liked King of the Monsters, and I wanted to I learned everything I could about that.
That's so impressive.
Yeah,
that scene is so moving too. Like every time I watch it to this day, like I get so emotional.
The fact that it's a play, that's almost like the reverse of the first film. It's like, instead of Serizawa trying to stop Godzilla and save humanity, he has to save Godzilla to save humanity.
Right.
Like, it's just it's so good.
It is so good. Well, here's the big question that I always ask everyone.
Mm-hmm.
How would you say Godzilla has shaped you into who you are today as a person?
For the most part, I try to be a good person, but I also like to try to like make people aware. Like, I don't want to say it like I'm trying to be. Godzilla's not a religion, but I'd like to tell people about it.
Mm-hmm. I
like to show them like, I'm really into this. I want to explain it to you. I want to show you why I'm really interested in it.
Mm-hmm. And you mean you're not going door to door with pamphlets? What? I am.
Well, because like for Godzilla versus Kong, when that came out, I actually rented a theater. Yeah,
that is amazing.
I rented a theater. I basically, well, one of my old customers, and one of the people I used to play cards with way back in the years, he worked at an AMC, and he was telling me about, like, yeah, a lot of people are renting theaters now because of COVID, because they want to just have the theater to themselves. I'm like, so you're telling me if I get like 20-something people, I could just have this whole theater to myself? He's like, yeah. I'm like, done. And yeah, I brought all of my friends, and we just watched it and enjoyed it. And I've tried to make it, like I said, I've tried to make it I've been making that a tradition since 2014. Like, it's just, I want to share my passion for this character with everyone. And honestly, it's for me, it also helps with certain conversations. Like, for example, like I said, I play Magic the Gathering, and I find it's a good icebreaker especially when you have like new people at the table, like that you're not. It's like, hey, I'm Matt. This is Godzilla.
I'm one of those people who always has like a PowerPoint presentation handy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, well, everyone, while we're here, let me open my laptop, and here is an assessment and analysis of Godzilla while you're listening. It's like, I often find myself kind of info dumping.
Yes.
And I've gotten better with it. Like you were saying, one way Godzilla shapes us is because Godzilla helps create a sense of community, a sense of tradition, like especially if you're used to enjoying it with other people, but also like just a sense of joy. Like I feel like we get so much joy out of it that we put it out there and hope that it's contagious in some way.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that's phenomenal. Well, I mean, as far as collecting goes, because we've already talked about collecting, right? And I'm going to ask, how far does your love of collecting go? Like, when did you start collecting figures or memorabilia?
Sporadically throughout my life, I've picked up things, like whether it be like, I was really into like the monster arts for a while. Like, just, I love that level of articulation. Like, I actually just got this one from my sister for Christmas. It's
so good.
Godzilla.
It's so good.
But but the thing is, like, the fact that I'm able to like move it and just like put it into position, into different poses and stuff. That's kind of like why I really got into those line of figures. But that's just one tip of the iceberg. So, like I said, I'm an avid comic book collector. My most prized possession probably at the moment is, did you ever see the what's it called? The Monsterverse Kickstarter they did?
Yes.
Okay. So they decided to do this whole like encyclopedia, not encyclopedia, but like the whole like all the graphic novels that from that in the Monsterverse, like Awakening, Kong, Stone Skull Island, with all that, and they put it into this like really nice book,
like an anthology, right, of sorts.
Right. It's
yes.
Cool. It's cool because it looks like a dossier almost, where it's just like got old like all the marks and stuff. But this is just the case. The actual book actually looks really nice. So it's a whole splash page.
That is so cool.
On the back is all the villains, which is from the books. Which honestly, a lot of the creature designs from the books, I'd say rival what they've been putting out on the screen. So, but the reason why it's my most prized possession is because the top tier people who fill out the Kickstarter had one special scene where if you were in the top bracket, there were only 5 spots. You got to be drawn in the book.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's you.
Yes.
That is amazing.
So,
how does it feel to be immortalized like that in comic book form?
It's still kind of surreal because again they don't, at first I thought it was going to be just like a page. It was going to be like a page. It was actually like 3 pages. I actually found the artist on Instagram. His name's Zid. I told him that, like, oh, I'm one of the top tier Kickstarters, and I sent all the reference videos. He's like, oh yeah, I got that. And he was showing me pages before it even came out. I'm like, oh my god, it's so weird. Wow. It's so weird to see myself in that. But I get my best friend John. He's always like, Matt. He's like, Matt, you're in the Monsterverse now.
You're canonized. You are canonized.
Yeah, unfortunately,
in the Monsterverse.
Unfortunately, I think so. The whole part of that book is just like before Godzilla hits Florida, the opening scene. So I'm one of the pilots that goes in. So chances are I don't make it.
But you were there to tell. Well, you were there. I was gonna say you were there to tell the tale, but then I was like, well, if your character died, then maybe not. But you were there to see it happen at least.
Yeah, and I was either blasted by Godzilla or swatted by Godzilla. So it's a win-win regardless.
I mean, I would love to be killed by Godzilla in comic book form. That would be amazing.
So
that is such a cool nugget of a unique experience in this fandom.
The only other thing that rivals it is I went to New York. So last New York Comic Con 2024, I don't know if you saw, but there was a panel, a Godzilla panel. It was Godzilla versus NYC, and Takashi Yamazaki was there. So I was already plotting out. I was telling my one friend who I was meeting over there, because she was coming from PA. I'm like, okay, we're doing this, and I just randomly was like just looking up to see if there were any updates on the New York Comic Con website, and they said that Yamazaki was doing a signing. I'm like, okay, I need more details. No details like of what I had to do. So as soon as we got to the convention, we ran over to like the autograph area and like, we need to know what we have to do. And they're just like, come, we don't even know yet. I'm like, but you guys work here. What do you mean you don't know yet? So they said, come back in like an hour and we'll figure. And they're supposed to give us more details. I'm like, okay. So we're just chilling in RS Alley for like 45 minutes because I wasn't waiting the full hour. I'm like, we're going back. We go back and we get directed by one of the women working there, and I think I was like number 27 out of 50 people to get in line for this. I met the man. And this was what I got. So, other context.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he signed it and he drew a little Godzilla on it.
That is amazing.
So, also side story. One last side story to this because it's relevant. This poster was from the AMC by me because my best friend John, who I've been mentioning throughout this whole story, worked at the AMC, and when they did the screening, back when -1 was only supposed to be in theaters for the first time, they were just like, we have two posters here. There's two posters. He kept one and his manager kept one, and he's like, here, this one's for you. I'm just like, so
what a great friend.
Yeah, again, since we were in high school, like I can always look to him for it.
That's amazing. Getting a chance to meet Yamazaki had to have been out of this world for you. What was he like? What was he like?
He was very soft spoken, he was very enthusiastic. He was like surprised of how many people were like that were like at the panel to meet him and stuff. He's like he's so down to earth too. Like
he seems so humble to me.
Yes, very much so. He's like he literally talked about his cat for a good 15 minutes of it because he's like, yeah, a lot of the movements for Godzilla and -1 were based off of gestures from my cat. I'm like, that's fantastic.
That's iconic. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. See, these are the nuggets of information as fans we need. We need it.
It also shows that that the one thing I've learned, especially with just meeting celebrities at conventions and stuff, is you have to kind of take away the facade of they're not like gods or anything. They're people like us. With just amazing talents and such. And I will say this: I've never had a bad experience with any of the Godzilla related actors, creators, or anything. They're always so polite, so humble, so enthusiastic. Sometimes they just resonate with you, and that's what makes great memories.
That's a very thoughtful way of putting it, I think, too. Absolutely. So I have one final question for you.
Sure.
Do you have any advice for Godzilla fans who may be new to the franchise?
The one thing I will say is seeing how diverse the community has been since I started is one, be open with any sort of interpretation, because again, the way I see it is there's a Godzilla for everyone. He's been around for 70 years, over 30 something films, and people resonate with different aspects of the character. If you can embrace that, then you open the door to so many other ideas and openings. It's just if you don't have to like every Godzilla movie, as long as you're aware of it and know where that's coming from. It just helps the community a lot, especially with a lot of younger people. I'm noticing when the Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong book came out, I saw a lot of kids picking up, and for me that was great. I'm like, sweet, I get to see Batman and a giant mech fight off kaiju. This is great. But it was cool to see someone else's interpretation of that character, and just seeing kids get into it. I'm just like that. It just makes me happy. I'm like, even my one of my close friends. She has a 2-year-old, and the last time I visited, I gave her one of the Playmates Godzilla. I'm not sure if that was the best thing to do because she started swinging it around a little bit, but. I'm like, oh god, you're gonna bludgeon someone with this thing, and your parents are gonna kill me. But then she would send me photos later of just it chilling with her in the purse, or watching just the overall okay, if that can affect someone, what else? What other things can I do? And again, like we talked about before. I've been good about it, but I try. But like, if the opportunity comes, I'm going to explain Godzilla to you.
See, I'm glad that you mentioned that example, because whenever I see a kid these days fall in love with Godzilla, like, I feel like it kind of heals something internally in me. Being that I was that kid when I was in school who people laughed at for liking Godzilla, who people othered for liking Godzilla. It was very isolating for a time.
Oh,
So, like, whenever I see a kid falling in love with the character, like, I want to affirm that and be like, yes, this is pretty cool. You are right. Let us nerd out together about this character being cool.
Right. Like, it just does so well. Like I said, there's a Godzilla for everyone. You can gravitate towards the character, and again, it's always regardless of which one you like, it's still Godzilla.
Yep. All Godzilla's valid, Godzilla.
Exactly.
So, Matt, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I've had such a good time. It's been insightful. Where can people find your stuff? Plug away.
So my main page is on my Instagram, Godzilla Collectibles. I try to post whenever I get any new items, or if something piques my interest. I should have a few things coming in soon, so keep an eye out for that. I also would like to just kind of shout out my best friend John, who I've been talking about this whole time. He has a figure page where he does a lot of figure photography at JL Customs and Collectibles. We collab every so often because he just has a really good eye when it comes to my Godzilla figures. Like, he's like, okay, we're gonna move him over here. We're gonna put the buildings here. Has a great eye for that. And then I would just like to highlight my friend Sabrina, who is the mother of the 2-year-old who I'm slowly introducing Godzilla to. She has a Twitch page, Sabrina Skyline. So she's also broadening her horizons from gaming and potentially doing models and such. So, but yeah,
it's good to have such a good support network like that, right?
Right. I'm very thankful for all the people around me. The fact that, like, I've been able to express myself to them and just show them, like, all these fandoms, because it's almost like an exchange. It's almost like we're just exchanging sometimes, because I have friends who are into Doctor Who. I have friends who are into One Piece. I have friends who are into all these different franchises, and I'm just like, now I broaden my horizons to it while also showing them what my passions.
Absolutely. No, I think it's important to have that support network, and that's one reason I'm so grateful that the show here has taken off, because I know I've mentioned this a million times, but I did not think I'd still be doing this. I figured it would be just a short, small smattering of episodes, but here we are 4 years into it, and it feels very warming having this level of support. So thank you, Matt, for joining me.
Of course.
I will have links to all of those handles in the description section of this video. And last but not least, everyone, don't forget to click like, subscribe to the channel, all of that, the usual. Comment below, and don't forget to keep standing tall, Godzilla fans. Have a good rest of your night.
Good night.
Bye.